The Lord be with you. Reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. After he had fed the people, Jesus made the disciples get into a boat and precede him to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. After doing so, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. When it was evening, he was there alone. Meanwhile, the boat, already a few miles offshore, was being tossed about by the waves, for the wind was against it. During the fourth watch of the night, he came toward them walking on the sea. When the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified. "It is a ghost," they said, and they cried out in fear. At once Jesus spoke to them, "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." Peter said to him in reply, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." Peter got out of the boat and began to walk on the water toward Jesus. When he saw how strong the wind was, he became frightened, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught Peter and said to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" After they got into the boat, the wind died down. Those who were in the boat did him homage, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." The Gospel of the Lord. Lord, save me. Lord, save me. Peter is crying out to Jesus in fear because he has got himself in a mess of his own making. The day before, the disciples were with Jesus on the mountain when Jesus was feeding the 5,000 people. And once they were finished, Jesus told them to go home. Go get in your boat and go back to Capernaum. And so they do. Jesus, I suppose, spends time tidying up, putting the baskets away, sort of getting things ready, telling the people goodbye. And the people all leave, and Jesus goes higher up on the mountain to spend the night in prayer. But then he comes down in the middle of the night to the Sea of Galilee, and he has a choice. He can go to the left and go around the sea like people would and walk to Capernaum. It's a bit of a ways. But then he supposedly thinks, well, if I just walk on the water and go across, I can get there a lot quicker. It would be shorter. It would be straight line right to Capernaum, right over the water. And so he does. The problem is that the disciples are out in a boat in the middle of a storm. The wind's howling. The waves are crashing. And in the distance, they see a figure coming towards them on the water. Well, they are afraid. The belief was that the wind and the sea, the waves, all of that was caused by spirits. They were the power in the world. Spirits did things, sometimes not nice things. And they're afraid that what's coming towards them is the spirit of the storm who's coming to kill them. And so they're afraid. It's a ghost, they think. But Jesus calls out to them and said, "It is I, don't be afraid." And Peter says something sort of remarkable. He says, "Well, if it is you, Lord, command me to come to you on the water." That's pretty brave on his part. And so Jesus I suppose, yells at him through the storm, "Come." And so Peter gets out of the boat and begins to walk on the water towards Jesus. He's probably got bare feet. I don't know what that would have felt like. Would the water have been soft or hard, like moving under his feet? But he's walking towards Jesus. He's got his eye on Jesus. But then he sort of comes to himself and thinks, what am I doing? It's the middle of a storm. I'm out here walking on the water. And he takes his eyes off of Jesus and starts looking at himself. And the fear comes back because it all seems out of control. And he begins to sink. Lord, save me. And of course, Jesus does. He's not going to let poor Peter drown. So reaches out and takes his hand and said, why did you doubt? Why did you doubt? Why did you take your eyes off of me? Why? And so Jesus takes him and they go to the boat and get in. And the storm dies down. In the chaos of that storm, these disciples meet the Lord. Meet the Lord in a very dramatic way. A way that was very scary for them. Upsetting, confusing, causing them to doubt. What are we doing here? But once they're all in a boat, they all calm down. They're glad it's Jesus and not a ghost to kill them. And so they do him homage. The Lord does not often come to us in such of a dramatic fashion. The Lord comes to us every day. Every day the Lord's coming to you, coming for you, coming with you. But it's not in a dramatic storm like these disciples were experiencing Jesus. In the first reading in the first book of Kings, we hear Elijah is up on the mountain, Horeb, and he's been told that the Lord is going to come by. Well, that's pretty exciting. The Lord's coming by. So Elijah is standing there by the entrance to his cave, waiting for the Lord. Then a heavy wind comes up. Now we have a big windstorm. Okay. Elijah's anticipating. But then the wind goes away. No God. So then there's an earthquake, shaking of the ground, rocks fall. That's over. No Lord. It's quiet. Then the fire comes. Blazing fire, sweeping through the area. Sure, Elijah thinks, this is it. The Lord's coming in the fire. Fire goes by. No God. Nothing. So that's got to be pretty disconcerting for poor Elijah. But then he hears a tiny whispering sound. A tiny whispering sound. You could easily miss it. You might have not paid any attention to it. Maybe it would be like the breeze going past the side of your face. A tiny whispering sound, and there's the Lord. The Lord could come in all the drama. The Lord came in the quiet and the peace. And Elijah could have missed him so easily. He was paying attention. He was waiting for the Lord. And then there's a tiny whispering sound, and God is there. So we are reminded in these readings to look for the presence of God in our lives. God speaks to us every day. Every day through the Spirit, the Lord's communicating with us, guiding us, showing us what to do. What do we do today? We might have an inkling about something. Maybe I could go help somebody. Maybe I could reach out to someone. Maybe I could say a prayer. Maybe I could support someone maybe I've had trouble with. And so we get those inspirations. And we think, I suppose, we just make that up. I don't know. I think the Lord's talking to us because we're inspired to do something that normally we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't act like that, but we're inspired to do it. Just a thought, or maybe it's in a dream. Something inspires us to go do something. It's the work of the Lord. Now, sometimes we are thinking to do something wrong. We're actually thinking about it. I'm going to go do that wrong thing. But then we feel a force of some kind. We don't really hear anything, maybe. In the culture, we call that your conscience. Your conscience is speaking to you. Your conscience is saying, I don't think so. You shouldn't do that. But again, I don't think it's your conscience. I think it's God. It's the Lord saying, don't do that. You're going to get hurt, or you're going to hurt somebody. It's not going to work out well if you do that wrong thing. And so the Lord is continually speaking to us, but not in the dramatic ways, but in the little ways that Elijah experienced it. The tiny whispering sound. And so we're called to pay attention. Take some quiet time every day. Go for a walk. Turn off the radio. Get the buds out of your ears. Shut off the TV. Cut out all the noise and rest in quiet. You can go for a walk. You can sit down. You can lay down. Maybe take a nap. Be good for you. But listen to what is it that Jesus is saying to me today. How is the Lord guiding me to live the gospel? And know that that's a real force. That's a real presence in our lives. We're just not making this up. God is continually talking to us as his sons and daughters, but not dramatically, not in a loud way, sometimes in the very quietest way, so that we too are called to be awake, be alert, listen. What is the Lord saying to us today? It may be sort of quiet. It may be like a breeze by our face, and it also may be a tiny whispering sound.